The 5 colors blind the eye, the 5 notes deafen the ear, the 5 tastes deaden the mouth. Riding the chase on horseback over the fields drives you crazy when you overdo it. And wanting what's precious, you do what distorts your being. The sage knows this in his gut and is guided by his instinct and not by what his eyes want. I've been waiting for this verse, and I'll tell you why. For one, the first time that I read the Tao, many, many years back, well over a decade, I found this verse to be one of the more confusing. And I was sort of continuously confused as I tried to get different perspectives on what people thought that it meant. And my take on it is nothing that I've ever seen anyone else say. Now, it probably exists, and I just haven't come across it. So I don't think that this is a completely novel to me idea, but I will say this is one of those instances where some of the people who I typically rely on for interpretations of these verses that oftentimes align with what I am thinking, or that just sort of clarifies or makes sense to me, even those people I feel are way, way off on this verse. The 5 colors, 5 notes, 5 tastes. They'll blind your eye, they'll deafen your ear, they'll deaden your mouth. My take on this is simply that anything taken or experienced in too much quantity ultimately ends up completely extinguishing that experience that you are attempting to have. So if you are trying to see some beautiful colors, hear some beautiful notes, taste some beautiful taste, and you take in too much, you get greedy, right? This sort of grotesque kind of continuous consumption, continuous need for more, more, more. Oh, if I had 3 of those and it seemed perfect, well then 10 of them must be exhilarating. Right? It's this idea that no matter what, that the more is always the better. And I think that this verse is saying you reach a point where you've done so much of maybe a wonderful thing that you've made a disaster out of it, and you've completely ruined it. And I think that that is the lesson here. And this is echoed in different ways throughout the Tao, and a lot of these verses are this. They're talking about the same thing, and they're just trying to describe it in a different way so that you can come to some level of understanding. Sometimes you need to hear the same concept explained half a dozen different ways before you sort of have that spark of, oh, I think I'm starting to understand that. And I think that that's part of this. And so this will couple with all these verses that we end up going through, which talk about when the work is done, let it be done, right? You stop when the work is done. Don't keep going and going and going. There are a lot of verses that talk about don't be greedy, right? Don't eat much more than you need. Don't consume much more than you need. Don't hoard money and wealth and people. There is a governor that you must stay attuned to that will indicate to you when enough is enough, and that it's the perfect time to pause or reflect or stop or cease. And I think that that's sort of what the end portion of this verse is about, that the sage is guided by his instinct and not by what his eyes want. Because if you're going by what the eyes want, they're going to want 5 colors, and they're going to say, well, 5 colors are great. I want 15 colors. That must be 3 times as great. And this sort of exponential expectation of growth that is deeply rooted in capitalist society. Right? This idea that companies must forever grow. And then how we sort of bring that into our own personal lives and accept it as a thing. I must always be striving to be better. I must always be striving to make more money. I must always be striving to get the next best job. And do you ever stop and say, why? Do you have enough? Is the pursuit of that thing really the pursuit of that thing, or is it that your eyes can't stop? And so you need to have some additional instinct, as it says here, that the sage has, that says enough is enough, no matter what your eyes see and your ears hear and your mouth tastes. This is enough. Now this part, wanting what's precious, you do what distorts your being. It's too much for this talk, but we can get into it another time. But all the things that we do that make us feel very uncentered from the standpoint of I'm doing something that feels untrue to myself. And then there is a litany of reasons why we must do them. And is it because you are wanting what's precious? And I would put that in very heavy air quotes and say if your pursuit of those things is because you're wanting what's precious, you may not really have a good grasp on what precious and preciousness actually is. But as I say, we'll leave that for another time, but it's a good sort of seed to plant. And we'll just let it sit there for now. But when can it all be enough? It's for you to decide. It is you trusting your gut and your instinct and finding moments where you can shut out the noise and the sights and the tastes and say, absent of all of that, which is trying to trick me into constant pursuit of more, what do I think is enough? Am I able to stop for now? Or at least pause and see? It is up to you, just as it is up to the sage, as he or she lets their gut and their instinct guide them.